Tal Zlotnitsky, creator of the Our.Love app in the App Store. Tal is an amazing individual, and in our first conversation, he blew me away with his energy and passion for what he does, and I'm sure you will find that too through this interview. This whole episode of Tightens Up today is special because it's all about love. Now, I must admit, initially, I love the concept about an app about love. I think mostly from the perspective of an entrepreneur, the market need is absolutely clear and the opportunity is tremendous. And the statistics are no lie. And everybody knows that in their consciousness. Many people are struggling for various reasons in their life with love and not only want, but need a solution for the betterment of their lives, their partners' lives, their children, and anyone else that they affect. And we will definitely talk about that. But I will say here, further, when I dug deeper into my emotions about this app, not in my belief in it, but my feelings towards it, I was skeptical. Could an app really be the solution for the problems in our marriages and our romantic long-term love relationships? Hint, after using the Our.Love app, it definitely started to warm my heart and to see that there is a lot more to love. So Tal, thank you very much for being here and welcome to Tightens Up today.
It's great to be with you, Jacob. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So enlighten us, Tal, and answer the age-old question, what is love?
I'll tell you what I think love truly is, and I think a lot of us misunderstand love, and largely that's because from a very young age, we're exposed to the concept of love as something that you find and then you live happily ever after. So how many of us have read or had read to us those fairy tales that end with the prince and princess meeting and they live happily ever after? But in fact, that's not love. It's the beginning of love. Love is actually about taking care of something and being present for something and being allowed to be present yourself. So in my experience, love is about being yourself, being able to be vulnerable, being able to be present with someone that cares deeply about you as you, and accepting that other individual in the exact same manner. That's true love. And the beauty is that it's absolutely within reach for every one of us. It's not something that's a fantasy. The truth of the matter is love is a skill. And if you learn the right practices and you learn the way of recognizing what situation you're in so that you can know what skill to use, you can experience a lot of it. And so that's my long-winded answer to a question that no one could possibly answer succinctly.
So being that love is a skill, then someone can hone it, improve themselves in it, right? They're not in a fixed place where they begin is where they stay. Tell us more about that.
Sure. I'll go back to the fact that the vast majority of us, unfortunately, do not have great role models growing up. And it's not that our parents try to be bad role models, and maybe you were very fortunate to have parents that just knew how to love one another. It's not about whether they loved you. It's about how they loved and treated one another. And many of us, including myself, watched my parents oftentimes treat each other in ways that didn't actually, in my view now, teach me how to love properly. Proper love is about respect. Proper love is about curiosity and understanding. And it's about keeping judgment down and keeping accountability up. But a lot of us just aren't exposed to the right things early on. In addition to that, we are taught so many things in school, but we're actually not taught about connection. We're not taught about what the proper components of good human connection are. And the end result is you wind up with popular culture where a lot of us have some significant misconceptions about love. For example, love hurts. People that love each other hurt each other. These things are patently untrue. And it is in fact the case that love is about knowing skills are necessary, mastering those skills, which is not that difficult once you understand what they are. You recognize it's actually just 7 skills. It's 7 skills, and they're common words like curiosity and accountability and appreciation. It's knowing what those words mean and then being able to recognize the situation you find yourself in and be able to pull the right tool. If you were a car mechanic and you're faced with a certain condition in the car, you listen for the sound the car makes, the rattle, right? Or maybe the scratching of the brakes. You then know which tool to pull in order to treat the car. Same with a doctor, right? A doctor listens to your chest or your lungs, and they know what to prescribe. But when it comes to human connection, we don't know what we're listening for. And the end result is we end up acting from our worst self as opposed to from our best self. And that leads to conflict and certainly doesn't lead to maximal love.
So a question I have about that then is, I want to lay out the map of the territory here of the 7 core competencies of love: curiosity, sure, appreciation, quality time, vulnerability, support, accountability, and physical connection. So where can someone gain awareness on where they're at in their love journey and how they can improve?
Great question. We started this app first, incredibly. I don't know about you, but I didn't know these 7 skills were the skills. You hear all sorts of words thrown about. Some words that you've commonly heard thrown about are not among the 7. For example, trust. And it's not trust is not important, it's that trust is actually implicit in some of these other words, right? So if you're accountable and you show appreciation and you're curious and you're vulnerable, that creates trust, right? So the reality is knowing these 7 words and knowing what they mean is a really critical step. And in our app, as you engage in the app, you download the app, one of the first things that we have you do is answer 7 questions. And they're worded in a way where you don't need to understand, you don't need to come into this with preparation. You don't need to come into this with a PhD in relationships. You need to come into this as a human being who's experienced the highs and the lows of love. And all of us, if we've been in a relationship, we've experienced both. And we oftentimes recognize in ourselves those behaviors that are causing us to either behave unlovingly or feel underloved or unloved, right? So the first step is answering 7 questions, right? There's a question about curiosity, right? What is curiosity? A lot of people don't understand curiosity. They think curiosity is about asking questions. And that is partially true. But curiosity is about listening. So it's about asking questions with the intent not to convince, not to be right, but to learn and understand. Okay? That's a difficult skill. A lot of us pose questions because we're trying to get our partner to say something that will show them how right we are about something. But that's not true curiosity, right? So you can't say, I'm asking you questions, so I'm being curious, I'm doing the right thing. No, the questions have to come from the right place in your heart. And that's part of the curiosity journey. We teach you not only what curiosity is, but how to recognize that you're doing it properly, and also how to recognize when you're not doing it so properly, right? So that's one. I'd be happy to talk about all 7 skills, but ultimately, it's about knowing the skill, knowing what it is, knowing.
Okay, so then what about presence and mindfulness? Because I heard you talk about mindfulness before, and this is a big thing that I've experienced is when you have the ability to be more present, practicing the rest of those skills and habits or whatever exactly how they manifest themselves can become a lot easier. Is presence one of those things that's implicit as well, or is it something more foundational? What's your thoughts there?
It's a great question. Presence is implicit, but not entirely implicit, right? So quality time is one of the 7 love skills. And quality times means creating special times together, which again, sounds very simple. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, sure. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the sporting event. That's actually not what it is. Again, quality time is that time where we are absolutely present and fully present with our partner. We are eyeball to eyeball. We're having a conversation. It's a conversation about something meaningful. It's a conversation about our feelings. It's a conversation where we're not holding back, but we're also not in any way, shape, or form making our partner feel unsafe, right? Vulnerability plays into that, right? So quality time is a critical aspect of being present. But presence is also about accountability, another love skill, right? Accountability means being able to accept your responsibility for something that went a certain way, maybe not the way you intended it. For a lot of people, there's a major challenge with being accountable. And it's not that they are now ready to accept responsibility, it's that they believe that explaining their reasons for behaving as they behaved excuses their behavior or should permit them to receive some sort of special dispensation. But reality is that accountability is simply taking responsibility for the impact that whatever it is, your action, your words have had on another person, full stop. And to do that, you do have to be present. You do have to be mindful. You also have to put your partner's needs very high on par with your own, knowing that in a healthy relationship, you are both doing that, okay? And even if you feel that you're in a relationship where it's not even yet, it's the right thing to do to practice the right behaviors, to manifest the right behaviors, as oftentimes your partner will emulate you if you do it consistently. Consistency is really important as well, and that's another part of being mindful, right? You can't just say, I was curious and I was accountable, but that was 2 days ago, and you haven't changed your behavior, and now I'm just gonna show you what's what. That's not gonna work. Consistency is a really important component, even though it's not one of the 7 love skills. Again, it's implied in the 7 love skills.
And when we look at if someone was unconsciously incompetent at something very important, how do stories hold people back? how do they get through them? And if they're not fully aware of those stories, can it prevent them from fully loving? And what are some thoughts that you have towards that?
It's a great question. Look, I think the biggest challenge many of us have is we have a great deal of unresolved pain. Almost all of us have some degree of trauma in our past or experiences that have shaped us that we haven't fully resolved. And oftentimes those unresolved feelings show up in our relationships in ways that we aren't mindful of. And rarely do they show up in a way that makes the relationship better. Oftentimes we find ourselves, and this is, my own experience, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm not a relationship scientist. I'm a human being that's been in relationships, good and less good, and has been immersed in this topic. And I think that almost invariably, the stories we tell ourselves are inconsistent with reality because we believe that our version of reality is reality, right? So let me explain that, right? So you currently are seeing me, and your reality is what you are seeing out of your eyes. But that doesn't mean that my reality, seeing what I'm seeing out of my eyes, is any less real. However, in a lot of relationships, we believe that we have the real version of reality. The other person doesn't. And as opposed to trying to understand and get close and blend our realities, we try to convince, in some case, browbeat the other person into seeing reality as we see it. Guess what? Could I convince you right now, Jacob, that I am green? Could I convince you? I could not, even if I argued at the top of my lungs, because you can see what you can see, and you have the right to that. Good relationships are about having full respect for the other person's right to have their version of reality, not trying to manipulate them into seeing something differently, maybe trying to understand why they see things the way that they do, but not trying to manipulate them and not trying to control them, and not believing that our story is the story.
That's powerful. And it gives dimensionality then to what someone could do as well. If they were having that story, see from the other person's perspective, perhaps they even see you in a different or better way. All things are made perfect in love. That's absolutely great. So what about people who are single? What can they learn from you, your journey, and even the Our.Love app?
So first, the app actually it starts out as a single user experience, and you don't have to have a partner. Even if you have one, you don't have to invite them. So everyone that comes into the app is initially in the app by him or herself. And you can participate in answering questions about your current relationship or your past relationship or how your life has been in relationships. You can then identify which skills, based on the questions that you answer, which skills we believe you should be looking at. Oftentimes it's curiosity. A lot of people don't appreciate the importance of curiosity. And so most of the roads lead to that first. Not all, but most of the roads lead to that first. Many men, unfortunately, would really like to start with the physical connection. And the reality of it is that it's not that it's last, but it's certainly not first. You have to address some fundamental reasons why physical connection isn't happening as frequently or isn't as good. And oftentimes it has very little to do with physicality and a lot to do with what's in your head. And so whether you're single or in a relationship, the first thing you'd be doing in our app is understanding where you are. The next thing you'd be doing is beginning to understand the skills that you need to support it. Now, I want to be clear, we are not a therapy. We're not a therapy app. What we have is content that is science-based. It's fact-based, science-based content that our science team is led by incredible scientists, some of the best in the world. But we produce content that is very light, right? Very easy to digest. You've seen the videos. They're funny. They're short. The audio clips are 1 to 2 to 3 minute clips out of our podcast. You're welcome to listen to the whole thing, but we oftentimes identify for you just the things we think you need to listen to that are specific to the skill you're working on. The readings are short, they're light. It's the kind of thing you can consume very quickly. We have games, and everything you do in the app earns you love coins, which you can use to redecorate your space, buy virtual gifts for your partner. A lot of them are gag gifts, so it's a lot of fun. And very soon, Jacob, we're going to be actually allowing our users to use those love coins to get discounts on real merchandise. So our first major partnership is with 1-800-Flowers. We're very grateful to them for being willing to work with us. And the intent, we haven't completed the game plan yet, but the intent is that they will accept love coins for discounts on merchandise. So we're really excited about that. And we hope to have lots of vendors to follow. So it's a combination of being in the app by yourself or with a partner, accessing the skills, playing and having fun, earning love coins, and on it goes.
And that's the thing you guys have done so well. And when I did tune into the app, and we're going to show a video right here so you guys can see the video that I had watched. And
Many of them, they're all fun.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a fun story about the video, if I may. The characters in the video are members of our team, right? So the people in the videos, even though the videos are animated, but each person that's animated is actually a member of our team. So that's a little fun anecdote. See if you can find me. I'm in the videos.
We'll do that. And yeah, on that note, you have some amazing people on your team. Tell us more about that. Really?
Yeah, we do. Look, in my experience, almost any business is the sum of its people. And if you're starting a new business, it is oftentimes the case that people start with an idea or with a product, and that's a mistake. You have to, it's fine to have a concept in mind, but none of us singularly are capable of conceiving something big anyway, all on our own. And the right thing to do is if you're going to go out there and try to solve a big problem, or you're trying to help people see something in a different light, it's very helpful to surround yourself with the most competent people that you can attract to work with you. And I would encourage every entrepreneur, even if you're young and just getting started and you don't have any experience, you don't have any connections, network, use LinkedIn, go to local events. If you've gone to college, contact the school and see if they can connect you to alumni or to other graduates who are also entrepreneurs. But try to partner up, because the truth is that's very helpful. And in my case, some of the first people that I contacted were longtime friends, Dr. Richard Safir, the Chief Medical Director of Health and Wellbeing at Johns Hopkins, who I've known over 20 years. He's a very good personal friend, was one of the first phone calls I made. And first, because I wanted to know, am I even right that this is an area that really does need to be pursued? And I was really gratified to hear Dr. Safir tell me that he had long thought that was a massive gap in wellness care. And the fact that we use our phones and technology to track and improve and modify behaviors and so many things. And yet for some reason, when it comes to love, we haven't done that. There's also the reality that we are increasingly a self-service culture, right? So I was just at the grocery store late the other night, and there are, I think, 14 or 15 checkout lanes, and not one of them had a human being. They were directing us all to the self-checkout lanes, right? And so we're in a culture where people are increasingly accustomed to doing things for themselves, which means that we must adjust the mode by which we expect people to get care for love. So the traditional form of getting support is therapy. Now I'm going to share a number with you, Jacob, that will blow your mind. I'm going to ask you, what percentage of couples do you think go to therapy?
35.
Okay, you're almost double the right number, which is under 20%. Okay, so less than 1 in 5 couples will go to therapy. They wait on average 6 years to do that. There's another statistic that I think is quite staggering, which is that 47% of Americans think that going to therapy is a sign of weakness. Okay, now I happen to categorically disagree with that. Categorically, but it doesn't matter that I disagree with that. That's my opinion. Okay, the reality is a whole lot of people don't think therapy helps them. Now, it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be the cost. It could be that they've had some maybe bad experiences with therapy. It could be that they are uncomfortable expressing their feelings to a stranger. It could be that they don't like confrontation. Any of those things are possible. But the reality is, if you don't like therapy and you're not going to get any help, then what are you going to do? And again, in our self-service culture, an idea of an app that can help you measure where you stand. Our app is about helping you not only measure where you start, but measure where you are. So we're continuously helping you determine where you, and if you have a partner and the partners in the app with you, where you guys are, where your relationship stands across those 7 critical love skills, so that you're not caught unaware. The worst thing that can happen in a relationship is one party thinks everything's okay, and the other party is increasingly feeling embittered, left behind, and uncared about, and unloved, and unappreciated. And next thing, out of nowhere, bad things happen. Affairs, divorces, depression, substance abuse, right? All these things tend to happen when there's disconnection in a relationship and we feel alone and unseen and unloved. The beauty of the app, in my opinion, maybe even more so than all the other features, is the opportunity to stay abreast of where your partner is. We have the mood tracker. So in real time in the app, you and your partner can update the app very quickly. It takes about 10 seconds to update the app during the course of the day to say, here's how I feel. This is how my day is going. This is why I feel this way. Now, if you updated your mood, Jacob, and let's say you and I were a couple, and you updated your mood, I would get a notification that you updated your mood. As I open, the app will immediately show me your mood update. It will show it to me in a visual form. It's literally a French door through the back of the house, and there's something going on through those French doors. It's either sunlight, it's rain, it's thunderstorm, and that's a reflection of your mood. Now, a lot of people aren't that comfortable sharing their mood with their partner. They aren't comfortable saying, I haven't really had a good day. So the opportunity to share how you feel and see how you're doing is really critical.
Absolutely. And then do people use that feature for deeper expression, right? Longer notes? Where do you see that feature being used for? And is that even practice itself?
100%.
Very
100%.
helpful.
Yeah. So some of the things, and I'll just pull up my own app, and me and my girlfriend use the app extensively. So this is how my week is going, or my month, right? And you go backwards and see prior months. I was apparently a lot happier in April, by the way, a lot more sunshine, right? But at any given point, I can click on, and my partner can do the same, and read what I wrote, right? So whatever it is that I wrote, it's reflected in here, and the same with my partner. In addition to that, I have appreciation notes. So there are all these appreciation notes that I write to my partner, or my partner writes to me, and we can go in there and see what the comments were, right? This is a really impactful thing. It's impactful for you as an individual to be able to express those feelings. It's impactful for your partner to be able to read them. And this is the beauty of technology. We're going to leverage machine learning to help you. So as an example, if you look at, I'm going to show you, I'm going to go backwards to the month of March, right? So if you look at the month of March, you can see that Wednesdays were pretty rough for me in March. Okay. Actually, Thursdays weren't that great either. Now, as you see, if you look at Thursday, there were 3 weeks in a row where my days weren't going so well. On the other hand, by the way, looks like I do really well on Mondays. I seem to love Mondays, right? The point is, that is the kind of information that you couldn't possibly have. There's no way you remember what your partner has been feeling over the last month. Now, the pattern that we've identified here is an opportunity. I might be able to tell you, okay, Jacob, it's Wednesday. For the last 3 weeks on Wednesday, your partner hasn't had that great a day. Why don't you do something nice for them today? Okay. Yeah. On the other hand, Jacob, when I know that for the last 4 Mondays, you've had a great day, that is a great day to say to you, hey, Jacob, you're having an awesome day. Why don't you do something nice for your partner? Yeah. Opportunity to get people to step up for each other and keep tabs on one another. If you're seeing that one of you's having a great old time, right? Sunshine, sunshine, and the other is not, that's a conversation starter. And if you're going to have a conversation, there's a great feature in the app. It's our audio emotion detection feature. It's very cool. You can begin a conversation. There's a bouquet of flowers that shows up on the screen. It's got lots and lots of topics. And as the conversation occurs, the bouquet of flowers is either going to wilt or it's going to blossom. And it's going to be based on the tones of our voice, how we're speaking to each other, whether we're being patient. It's a phenomenal way to be able to engage, because a lot of these questions are lots of fun. They're not things you normally would talk about. So it's a great thing to do if you're going out to dinner, you want to actually have quality time. That's a great way to do that.
So to go a little bit to an entrepreneur's moment here, when you were creating the tech behind this, you were modeling, let's say for that feature example, you were modeling vocal pitch and tone and then figuring it into, tell us more about that.
It goes back to the question that I probably didn't fully answer, which is the question of the team, right? So I couldn't begin to tell you how to do AI when it comes to audio emotion detection. I don't know the first thing about it, but our team has some of the best people in the field. Our chief technology officer, Louis Bartov, is a genius in AI. He's a former chief technology officer of Match.com. Dan Hart, our chief product officer, ran all gaming for Yahoo. And then he ran all gaming and then all digital for MTV. We've just got some very talented people. And I couldn't begin to, I'm not going to pretend that I know how this works, but I can tell you that this is vetted, qualified features and benefits and that are rooted in science. And it's ultimately, what I can tell you is I have asked this question, because what's interesting about this feature is it doesn't actually understand a language. So if it doesn't understand a language, how can it possibly determine how we're doing? And the answer is that it is listening for things that are about communication hygiene, not words. So as an example, let's say that I finished speaking, and the moment I finished speaking, Jacob, you immediately started speaking. That is an indication you're not listening very closely, right? If I'm speaking and then you speak over me, or vice versa, that's an indication of something as well, right? So and those are two of a few dozen different audio detection metrics that it's listening for. And then it gives you readings. At the end, when you're done with a conversation, it'll actually tell you how you did, how many moments of connection you had, how many moments of joy you had. And a lot of times it's pretty surprising. You think you've had a a good conversation, maybe a great conversation, and there was no joy in that conversation. Guess what? If there's no joy, there'll be no love. So it's pretty incredible. I mean, I'm very psyched about the features in the app, and there's a lot more coming.
And there's so much about the unconscious elements of communication. For example, what you're mentioning, tone, pitch, vocality, those things that, I mean, your voice is almost an expression of your body language as well, and all those things. So being able to set that in the middle of the room and have that experience could help someone be like, oh, I had no idea. I feel great, but now I just need to lift up that voice or what have you. So
For
a lot
sure.
of fun to be out there.
Look, there are so many variables there. So I forget the exact number, but I read somewhere that between our facial expressions, our hand gestures, the tone of our voice, the pitch of our voice, and the words we speak, that's a lot of different components. And the words themselves are only one of those components. And that's how a lot of things sometimes go awry. You say something, you're saying it from a certain place, and you're saying it in a certain way. It's not how it's received. And we struggle with that. We struggle as human beings a lot. And a lot of times what we struggle with is the frustration we feel that our intent was received differently than we intended, right? I didn't want to upset or offend you. I was just trying to do X, Y, Z. But the truth of the matter is my being upset with you, that my words, my tone, my actions upset you, is the epitome of getting it backwards, right? Mm-hmm. The thing I need to do when something like that happens is immediately go to curiosity to try to understand what it was that upset you. And then I need to be accountable and say, you know what? Doesn't matter what I intended. I'm sorry that that's how it landed for you. If you do that, it's magic. I speak of that from now personal experience. I started this company because I was going through a divorce. And after 20 years of marriage, raising a great family, I'm very good friends with my ex, but we did not do love very well with one another. And I really felt that there had to be a better way to love. I personally hadn't experienced that. And I've done a lot of learning, and I'm now in a relationship where I really feel like the right of feeling loved, and being loving are all there. And I feel I owe a huge debt of gratitude to our scientists for identifying the 7 love skills and the 5 love journeys, which we haven't talked much about the love journeys, but they do come together. Ultimately, the love journey, which is what stage are you in? Are you building a strong foundation? Are you traversing life stages? Are you navigating challenging times, right? These things all impact where you are and what skills you need, right? Again, let's use the car metaphor. If you're fixing a car, it sure helps to know whether you're going to be driving that car in the desert or driving it in the snow. And not knowing that, you may end up putting the wrong tires on the car or doing something that's not ultimately going to lead to the outcomes that you're looking for.
Did you develop a burning desire around better love, creating better love, experiencing better love, and unlocking that for others?
Goodness, yes. As I think about my career, and I've been very blessed. I came to this country as a 12-year-old child, not speaking the language. And 23 years later, I found myself standing on the west lawn of the White House, right outside President Obama's White House, speaking to the press on behalf of President Obama. And that can only happen in America, first of all. So that's one of the beauties of this incredible country of ours. But it also helps me appreciate all the more as I look at what I'm doing now, how the journey I've been on was a journey about myself and my own being the best version of myself that I could be for my family and myself. And now I feel like I'm on a journey to try to share as much as I can. And not just in the context of love, by the way. I love mentoring young startup CEOs and young people, period. That would be what I would say to anyone that's listening to this who is maybe in any kind of position to share any kind of wisdom. Because the truth is that if you're in a place in your life where you can give back, it is so much more gratifying ultimately than anything you can do for yourself. So I feel a huge burning passion to help people understand that loving well, being loved well and loving is not some pie in the sky. Oh, it's never going to happen. Oh, my husband is not this. Oh, my wife's not that. Put that aside. Okay. Dig in the way that you would if you were trying to learn how to drive or learn how to program or learn how to garden. Any skill that is worth knowing requires some work. Now, the good news about our app is that the work is done in a way that's lighthearted and fun, which quite frankly is a better way to learn. There's a reason that the best teachers any of us have ever had did not feel like it was fun, right? We all have had those people in our lives that just made it fun to learn. A lot of us retained way more in that setting, which is why we ended up building an app that's essentially a game. with the idea that if you're playing and you're having fun and it's enjoyable and you're laughing, hopefully you're going to keep coming back. Your partner will keep coming back and you'll learn and you'll grow. So that's my passion. I mean, I would be so honored. It's God's will, and whatever it is what I'll end up doing. I don't know for a fact that this will be the rest of my life, but it'll be nothing that I would love more than to spend the rest of my life trying to help people love more and better.
Do you believe you see love differently as an entrepreneur? And throughout your journey, maybe it's changed. You have a different framework for the way you look at the world. And actually, the 7 core competencies to bring that together, is that your mental framework when it comes to love, that you're able to go back to it, right? You mentioned a situation where you experience something. Hey, I need to be in curiosity.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, I think the funny thing about the 7 love skills is they're also the 7 life skills, because quite frankly, it doesn't have to be someone that you sleep with to be the right way to be. So in general, being, and even physical affection or physical connection, there's a place in the world for physical connection. It's a different kind of physical connection, right? So if you're seeing someone that's in distress and you have that kind of relationship with them where you can put your hand on their shoulder, that is a good and healthy way to show support. Again, if it's accepted or acceptable to the other person. So in truth, yes, I think those 7 skills, I'm using them constantly. And I'll actually, you know what, I was going to tell a story about me and one of my children, but I'll skip it. I'll just say that I'm finding myself repeatedly referencing the 7 love skills, cataloging the situation that I'm in the context of one of the 7 love skills, and then being able to adroitly either myself or help the person that I'm with experience more comfort. And that's a wonderful feeling, to be able to feel like what's going on. And look, all of us have something called our inner critic, right? My girlfriend writes about that, actually. She's a brilliant best-selling author. That's her book right there, phenomenal book. But the inner critic is a lot of times a voice inside us that's the amalgam of whoever has criticized us in our lives. Maybe it's our parents or a teacher or a coach or our brother or a grandmother, and it's oftentimes our younger self that's listening to that. And that voice is loud. And for a lot of us, it drowns out other voices. The key, by the way, is not to disrespect that inner voice, not to say, hey, shut the door. It's to say, hey, thank you. I know you care about me. I know you're trying to protect me. I hear you. And I got this. So that's a huge part, being able to tell your inner critic to just leave you be for a minute. Not disrespecting the inner critic, but not letting the inner critic define reality for you any more than, as we discussed, we can define reality for each other. The inner critic, their set of views about things, and they're formed out of fear, oftentimes, or trauma, or any kind of experience that has made us less courageous, maybe less bold, maybe less loving. We as human beings, I think, should do the very best we can. It's very hard. The whole thing is very hard. But to the extent that we can, we should be mindful of it so that we can be in control of ourselves and of our lives.
So this is a question that when I first heard of this, it blew my mind, and I'm really curious of your thoughts here. Are you a believer in algorithmic love? And I'll give you the example that I heard, that there is an app or something, I don't know where it is exactly. Again, I just had heard this, where you could basically identify the person who is 99.9% the best person for you. And there were people who left their significant others and went and found these people and these sort of things. Do you believe that we can reduce it down to machine learning algorithms and data, and that people could be matched, and you take out that maybe more core elements or organic elements, or who knows?
It's a tough question. I think the answer is no. But the reason I say it's a tough question is because the fact is that there are people that are more right for us than others. And there are people that are definitely not right for us. But that doesn't mean that, what we need is a 99% match. What we need is a good enough match and the right skill set. And when I say good enough, I don't mean you need to be settling, oh yeah, I'm marrying this person, they're just good enough. I mean that you should not look for perfection. You should not look for the person of your dreams. If you're under the illusion that you're perfect, most of us are not under that illusion. In fact, most of us are probably too critical of ourselves. And loving yourself first, by the way, is a really important part of loving. It's really hard to love if you can't love yourself. And so I would encourage anyone that's listening or watching this that is interested in love to focus on loving themselves. Meditation is really important. And our app has meditations by Brian Israel, one of the greatest meditation leaders. A lot of our meditations are for couples, but you can enjoy them on your own. But yeah, I would say that algorithmic variables can probably decrease conflict. They are not going to, in and of themselves, cause you to be loving and happy.
Yeah, and I just, who knows what that algorithm has in it? For example, my wife is about 6 inches taller than me. So see, so
You should go out on a date. That'll be a lot of fun. People would love to see us together then. I love
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting, more thoughts for exploration there. I mentioned this a little bit, but the videos on the Our.Love app totally warranted. They're extremely cute and it's just fun. Like you said, it's fun. And that is where learning happens. That's where growth occurs. So how did you come to design the app the way you did? And even the whole brand presence, if people tune into the website as well, it's really well put together.
Thank you so much. Again, it's not I, it's team, and there's no I in team. And the team that has managed development of this product, I want to name a few people that really do deserve a lot of credit for the way the app is designed. And to be clear, there's always work to be done. This is still it's version 1.0, my friends. If you've seen version 1.0 of Facebook, they've come a long way, and we're going to come a long way. But I want to credit Dr. Larry McCullough, who's our Chief Product Science Officer. He's a brilliant man. He's the founder of an institute called the Pine Tree Institute, which specializes in the impact of childhood trauma on adult communication. And he has been at the very precipice of science and technology for 30 years. He's the one that kind of landed we should be building a couple verse, which is what we built, a kind of a shared place. In one of our focus groups, a woman made a statement that kind of blew whatever little hair I have left back. Why is it that we are perpetually single online? Why is it even once we're in a couple in a relationship, online, we're always single? It doesn't make any sense. Why don't we have some shared space together online? And that actually made total sense to us. And we ended up testing that with some other people, and it was like everyone got that, everyone loved it, and we ended up building a couple of us. So Larry gets a lot of the credit. Within 2 weeks of founding this company, we had a team of 14 people. So I was very gratified that just about everyone that I reached out to, Tanya Koppen-Fox, my co-founder, a healthcare executive, John Passman, our chief marketing officer, Adrian Martinez, our chief of staff, and some young people like Michael Sheehan and Madison Huggins, we came together and we spent 2 whole days basically just in a conference room with a lot of sticky notes, and we covered the wall with ideas. And then we focus group the heck out of those ideas. We did it for 6 months before we wrote 1 line of code. And then we started building the product. So I'd say that our team designed, but our end users, the ones we were thinking about, the ones that were sitting with us in the focus groups, the ones that were keeping notes for us on paper for 30 days about how their days were going and what would have helped, they helped build this product.
So what about, my next question was about mindset blocks that you experienced, but now that we're really on the concept of team, what were some of those mindset barriers, blocks, maybe disagreements that arose while you're like, hey, this needs to be like this, or what have you? Because love is such a powerful topic. When you had those 14 people in the focus groups, what was that dynamic like that you were developing and that has led to where you're at now?
Wow, what an amazing question. And I'll tell you, Jacob, it's been a trip because on our team, we have 3 of the scientists on our team. Dr. Safir, Dr. Jim Cohn, and Dr. Leanne Campbell are among the very, very best in their field in the world. Okay. And they are brilliant and they get the science and they understand wellness and they understand relationships. And then there are people on our team, Stu Kleiman or Susan Brady. What they bring to the table is an understanding of how humans behave in the workplace and in challenging situations and about the inner critic. And that doesn't have anything specifically to do with love, but it has a lot to do with how we experience love and how we feel love. And there are other people on our team that are engineers or gamification experts, and they all have a different perspective on human psychology and how to build a product. And there was a lot of pushing and pulling, but it was done, not surprisingly, considering we're a love company, it was done lovingly, and it was done with respect, with the understanding that ultimately, I'll tell you who's going to answer the question of what the product is going to be. It's going to be the customer, right? So we're going to always start with something. At any given point, we start with our best idea. And then when the product meets the marketplace, sometimes those good ideas die because they're just not manifested or they're not experienced that way by users. Other times, better ideas emerge, right? I would say that there was a lot of strong opinions because when you have a team of a bunch of people that are at the very top of their field, you're going to have that. Good leadership is about trying to encourage that discussion, encourage discovery, but ultimately also being prepared to step in, even if you're not necessarily an expert, be able to put aside something we all suffer from, which is an imposter syndrome, and saying to myself, heck, how do these guys have spent collectively 100 years starting relationships? I've been doing it for 6 months. How am I going to know better than them? It's not about knowing better. It's about using the information and then moving the team forward and not letting things come to a complete stop. And that's leadership. That's where a COO or a strong president can come in and have a big impact, and do that in a way that doesn't leave anyone feeling disrespected or unappreciated.
You're bringing that out. You're bringing more of what they have out, which is a core principle of a great relationship, or a core expression of a great relationship, where it's like, hey, you have so much in there, so I hope you bring it out.
And you know what? If you start with curiosity, remember what I said, the beauty of the skill sets is you just go right to them. So I'll give you an example. We actually had a vigorous debate about how to display moods. The original concept, our designers designed it to be displayed with emojis, facial expressions. Our scientists vomited all over that. They said, you know what? Facial expressions mean different things in different cultures. We can't use facial expressions. We need to use weather patterns. Okay. Now, we ultimately settled on weather patterns because that actually does make a lot of sense to me. Okay. Now, let me give you an example of an idea that ended up being an idea that we are now reversing. When we started asking those 7 questions on the front end that we use to fill out the tracker to give you your first read, we put the drag bar on 50%.
In the middle, yep.
Okay? Now, by doing that, we created an instance where a lot of people were like, oh, maybe I'm a little to here, I'm a little to there. And we didn't actually get the full sense of where people felt they were. We are moving it back to 0. We're going to make people, we're going to make people drag it to where they believe it belongs and not be influenced by where we placed it. So that's some of the incredible work that's being done by a genuinely talented team of people that deeply cares about the outcomes and wants to make sure that whatever we put out there in the marketplace is going to have an impact. And I'll tell you, we studied one company more so than us. We studied a lot of companies, but there's one company that we really studied, and that was Noom. Here's the interesting thing about Noom. Many of us have heard about Noom, right? It's the weight loss app. First, Noom tried to do something that we've all done offline forever, right? Losing weight. It's gone back hundreds of years at a minimum, right? There was probably a point where we were more worried about sustenance than how we looked. But certainly for a few hundred years now, people care about how they look and they care about their weight, and they've attempted to manage their weight one way or another. But they've not done that using technology. Noom decided to take technology towards an age-old thing. So how did they do that? And why have they been so successful? They have been successful because they've gamified the heck out of it. They made it fun. They have helped you see where you are. They've helped you plan where you're going. And they've made it a lifestyle choice. It's not about losing weight. It's about a lifestyle, right? And we hope to have the same impact on our users. We hope our users recognize that a minute or 2 or 3 a day in our app makes a significant difference in their relationship. And I've said this, men and women, generally speaking, take a little bit of a different view to what constitutes the right activity that they would be interested in engaging in. Men and women, generally speaking, not all, may or may not like the same things, but they do want the same outcomes. They want to be close. They want to feel loved. They want to feel respected. They want to feel appreciated. They don't want to be judged, right? The key is to help people understand that regardless of whether you're in the app and you're watching a funny video or playing a game or reading an article or buying a gift, you're both engaged in the action of showing each other that I'm present, I'm trying, I'm engaged, I care. And that is a self-perpetuating cycle of good that a lot of us need. You just need to start. And then if you keep doing it, hey, you updated your mood. I noticed you weren't having a good day. We need that. We don't stop wanting to play just because we're not kids anymore. We just want to play a little different. And we want to be seen, and we want to be loved, and we want to be cared about. And a couple of minutes a day sends the message to your partner that you care. And that goes a long way.
What is and absolutely phenomenal stuff there. So what are some of the non-obvious daily practices that you do to improve your love life and your identity as a lover, which is something we can talk about? I'm sure you might identify as a lover or even a great lover, and that identity is such a powerful thing, and habits enforce identity. So unpack some of your habits and practices.
First of all, I meditate every day. I oftentimes have a 5-minute meditation in the morning and a bit of a longer meditation, 10 to 12 minutes at night. I use our own meditations at night. They're 12 to 14 minutes long, so they're perfect for then. But meditation is really important because meditation ensures that you're not overrun by your day, that you get inside yourself and you help yourself recenter. And I think that's a really critical component. And it's something you were talking about before. And I think that's really valuable and underappreciated. I also pray. I pray every single morning. If you're not a person of faith, I don't judge you for that. But for me, having a little connection with God is really important. And I think it helps make me a better partner. I am deeply interested in what is going on in my partner's day. Even if my day, a lot of us are somewhat of a storm, right? We get home and the guy cut us off and our boss was rude. And I have found that it centers me and helps me feel like I am who I want to be when I start with genuine interest in my partner. And those are the things that are, I feel, having the greatest impact on the relationship. It certainly helps that if you have a partner that is deeply committed to respect, because that's the part that I think a lot of us get wrong. We don't understand how much damage we cause by not staying in respect. And there are moments in our days, certainly in our lives, where something happens that takes us out of our best self. It's just life. The key, though, is to know who you are when you are your best self. Recognize you're not being that person and get yourself right back there. So that's another thing that I do. I know who I am when I'm at my best. I'm not always there. And when I'm not, I take note of it and I mindfully get myself back to a place where I feel that I can be more of that person. And I think all of those things impact the kind of lover that I am.
Do you plant that image of your best self in your mind while you're meditating? And for anybody who maybe doesn't have that, I know that's something that's extremely important, right? The way you see yourself influences where you're going, what you're doing, the habits what you're saying. Do you plant that image, and is that something or a practice, is that through meditation or what have you, that someone could use in their life to start moving towards that, really identify that and be that person?
Actually, it's funny you say that. My brilliant girlfriend has a business idea that we are contemplating right now about that very topic. And she writes about best self. That's what she writes about. I would say that most of us do not have a really clear sense of who we are at our best. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage anyone that's watching or listening to write this question on a piece of paper. Who am I when I am at my best? And then sit in a quiet room or with some very mellow background music and put words on the page. And you can just put words. You can write entire sentences or entire paragraphs. Don't worry about connecting them yet. Just write them down. The second thing I would ask, and I would encourage people to do, is asking a good friend, coworker that you trust, your spouse, to tell you a story about how they experienced you at your best. Tell me a time when you thought I was just at my best. What did you experience? What was I like? What made you feel that I was at my best? And sometimes hearing how other people experienced you at your best helps you see yourself better, right? It's a remarkable truth that sometimes it takes someone else telling you something to fully believe it. Because we sometimes doubt ourselves. It's human nature. It's human nature to not be sure, to be very self-critical, to assume that whatever version of ourselves we are is less than what it can be, and maybe it is, but the reality is that many of us are way better and way more than we give ourselves credit for. And there are people around us that have seen us in those moments. So between that exercise and writing down who you think you are at your best self and having a few people that you care about and that care about you tell you who that person is, you should be able to come up with a pretty good profile. And then at any given point, do an inventory. If you're in a place where you're getting in an argument with your boss or your coworker or your spouse or your child or your parent or whomever, maybe it's not an argument. Maybe you're just maybe you're being apathetic. Recognize that. Ask yourself in that moment, what would my best self do? And then try to do that. Simple as that.
I think that might be one of the most impactful things ever said on Titan Sip today yet. So I doubled down on that. Anybody listening to this, do it. It is powerful. Now, then this segues perfectly into the final question here. My wife, and a bit of a statement, my wife gave me some of the most amazing advice recently on this note. And then we were just playfully, I asked her, if you could immediately fully believe in one thing, like, hey, I believe I could go make $1 million in a day or whatever, you just fully could just convince yourself in a second and choose anything in the world, whatever that is, and believe it, what would that be? And she said, the first thing would be to believe in yourself. Because if you could just immediately fully believe in yourself, everything else can stem from that. And now just to go on that topic back again of self-love and its relationship to romantic love, how does someone continue that? You have to have that image in your mind, like you just said, but what's really that next step? You said take an inventory, but are there any other things that someone could do to really hone in on that self-love, self-appreciation, and other core elements such as that?
Yeah, there's no magic trick. Really, at the end of the day, it's about doing some work. I played sports, I played baseball and soccer. In fact, I played soccer last week. I forgot that I was almost 50. I barely could walk this week. My Achilles was killing me. But the truth is that when you play a sport, you learn that in order to avoid injury, you have to stretch. And different sports require different stretches. And so I would say the different situation require different skills. And I think your wife is onto something. I think that if you could believe anything, I think believing in yourself, but more specifically, I would say believing in your own goodness is a critical component, because in life, I've found that there are many moments where if I'm able to accept that I'm doing my very best and knowing that I'm being my best self and I'm doing my very best, I find that I can be much more at peace with the outcome. And that will be my answer to that question. So believing in yourself, but also believing in your innermost best self when your intent and your objective is to be good. And with that, it gives you the opportunity to both experience life, positive state of mind, as well as be experienced by others in a positive way.
Amazing. And so a few quick things to cover here. Our.Love is a free app that people can go download. It's on Google Play and Apple Store. Our.Love is doing a Kickstarter. So go and visit that. We'll include the link below.
The app is free. Subscription options. We welcome your subscriptions because that does help us invest in the product. We do ultimately envision that there will be a more premium version of the app that will include more games, more levels, more information that will be paid. But subscriptions right now are anywhere from 99 cents a month, $4.99. There's a ton of free content in the app. If you are in a position to support us and you want to go on Kickstarter and participate, that would be super helpful. We've raised money from angel investors, from myself, from my partners. Starting a business like this, especially if you're not trying to charge people right up from the gate, which is something that we are trying to avoid, we need help. And so if anyone is of the mind that what we're doing is important and could make a difference in the world, we would welcome your support. Download the app, tell your friends, tell your family, follow us on social media, and if you can, participate in the Kickstarter. We're also giving away things, right? So depending on what level you're willing to support us, we're giving away very cool t-shirts that have all sorts of really cool statements. We have an incredibly cool logo that we snapped a lot of things. If you give us $54, you'll go into the permanent wall of fame on our website as someone that supported love. So your name will be there in perpetuity. Yeah, so we love your
support, believe in love. And if you've ever believed in love and supported love, go to this Kickstarter. Thank you guys for watching an amazing episode of Titans of Today, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Titans Up Today. What did you learn from it? Make sure to drop a comment below with your most valuable insight so that other people can engage in the conversation around what this speaker brought to the table. And then on another front, make sure to subscribe so that every time we drop a new episode, you will be notified. And that way you can keep fueling your dreams and your brain with fresh insights, which can help you along your journey and along your path to your goals. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next interview.